This is Holly Bahar, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow. I'm Albie, and as always, with me is Hayden.
And I loved this rerun of Roberto.
We got Brian Greene.
Hey, guys.
And we got John Irons from Captain Game Show.
You do. You do have me.
And this week we are talking about not Roberto. No, we're talking about The Outsider. So we're talking about Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, right? No, wait, that's The Outsiders.
No.
Stay golden, Pony Boy. I'm not sure what's going on. No, wait,
What?
The Outsider. Leap date, October
How old
6th.
are you, Albie?
Pretty old. Leap date, October 6th, 1982. Broadcast date, Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. And the synopsis is, an anonymous source sends Ben and an experienced local Denver TV journalist on the trail of a dangerous conspiracy as they pursue the scoop of a lifetime. In the early 80s, there's trouble at headquarters when Ian's past decisions come back to haunt them and the team. The story was by Rami Park. The teleplay was written by Rami Park and Margarita Matthews. This episode was directed by our friend, the great Deborah Pratt. Yay.
Who's also
And,
joining us a little later.
A little later. And we got the director of photography is Anna M. Amarty, and it was edited by our friend Christina Castro. So the episode had a lot of our friends in it. The guest cast was James Frain, of course, Sarek as Gideon Ridge, Nadine Ellis as Connie Davis, Charlie Bodine as Robbie Barlow, Matthew Polkamp as Chet Barlow, John Marshall Jones as Davison Best. I really liked him. He was good in the episode. Bill Parks as Farmer Steve. Gotta love Farmer Steve. Daniel Kamen as Wyatt Lee Smith. And Tysa Zeiter as Nancy. Was Nancy the coffin lady?
She was Steve's wife.
Steve's wife. Farmer
Yes,
Steve's
coffin.
wife.
Coffin lady, yes, coffin lady.
So I'm watching this episode, right? And I know in TV everything means something, and she's just like, and I'm like, oh, that's coming back. And it did. Either that or we got a really rough edit.
It's literally Chekhov's gun.
John Irons, first thoughts on The Outsider.
This is a fair episode. I liked it. I was maybe more interested in the not that the leap was bad. The leap was fine. But I think I was probably more interested in the story going on back at HQ a little bit more than the actual leap itself. Because, like, as you say, once the cough happened and I saw like the canisters in the background, okay, I think I know where this is going. But it was still done well. But the HQ stuff was really good.
Yeah, it was. Brian, first impressions of The Outsider.
Yeah, overall, I liked it. I thought it rolled pretty well. I did have a lot of hints of Roberto in it, but I liked Roberto. So watching it again is fine with me. But like John said, I was more interested, I think, in the behind the scenes going on at the project than anything else. And I really wish we'd seen more of James Frain. I hated that he left right at the beginning there and didn't come back. So, but yeah, Davidson, he was probably my favorite character, even though he wasn't in it, but for a couple of minutes here or there. I loved his character. I wanted to see more of that. But yeah, I liked it.
So he was Gideon, wasn't he?
What's that?
He was Gideon, wasn't he?
Gideon James Frain? Yeah.
Hayden, first impressions of The Outsider.
Well, I'm very conflicted about this episode, actually. I think on a subjective stance, it's a fine episode. It's very well acted. The structure was quite good. I did enjoy the leap. I think standalone, or for someone who hasn't seen the series of Quantum Leap before, I think that they would really enjoy it. Trouble is, I've seen all of Quantum Leap before, and I've seen this entire episode before. This really just felt like they reskinned Roberto, even down to someone being poisoned and having to prove that their stuff was poisonous through some interview at the very end.
I was thinking a little bit of Roberto during this episode. I don't know if consciously or unconsciously, but I was thinking, oh, they're going to put that, what was it, Herbicor in a spray bottle. or they're gonna say it's in the spray bottle or something. I was like, this rings a bell. This episode, like, I feel like I've seen it before, but it felt really good. For me, it felt like an episode of Quantum Leap. It felt like it was made in the late 80s, early 90s, and that's hard to do nowadays, I think, except for the project stuff that seemed modern. But the leap itself really seemed like it could have just slotted in to the old series, and I could totally imagine Scott being in that role at the same time.
Maybe part of my issues are I'm keeping up with what's going on the fan sites, or so-called fan sites. The last episode, that seemed to bring all the bigots out of the woodwork. And I've gotten into several arguments with people pointing out that, if you don't like something, you can just keep your mouth shut about it. Or if the only reason that you don't like an episode is because of the representation of someone who you don't like seeing, then you are a bigot. They don't like hearing that. For some reason, the people who seem to always be on the, side of, call people what they are, somehow don't seem to like being called what they are. But having said that, it also does feel like there are some big issues going on behind the scenes, actually. And since the series came back for episode 9, we've had a drop in viewer numbers of 1.5 million people. That's not including any of the HDMI recordings or any of the Peacock streamings or anything like that. But when you only look at the numbers, it doesn't look good. And when you have a very loud minority of people who are, making, horrible statements about the show because of the inclusion of something that they don't like, and when the renewal of the show seems to be somewhat up in the air, it's not painting a very good picture. And this episode, to me, when combined with everything that I've been seeing online, it feels like they're trying to please everyone, but in doing so, they're not pleasing anyone. So I really wish that the show would feel again like it's gone back to its roots, saying an awesome story, getting their point across, but without being overly heavily handed with it. And I think then more people will be pleased with what they're seeing and trying to keep the show going. I don't think people realize that if the show gets cancelled, it's not coming back. And we've waited 30 years for the show to come back. And we fought for it, and we've had this cult following of the show that we all love. And ultimately, the heart of the new series is basically the same as what we had in the previous one. Yes, story structure is a bit different. Yes, they have to bring in some issues that are around now that weren't so prevalent at back in the day. And a lot of people seem to be upset that the show seems to change while they haven't. But we should still be standing behind it and trying to keep it going, trying to influence people to, treat people with respect and help make the world a better place. And I feel like the past few episodes have kind of felt like a backward step, especially with everything else going on behind the scenes.
I think the ratings a lot has to do with moving it to a different night. I mean, not everybody has the same night where they can sit and watch television live. So I think we'll have to wait and see for the replays on Peacock and, see how much drop off there is, because there's always going to be a drop off when you change nights. Because I mean, we knew what night it was airing, but that's because, we have an interest on watching each episode and knowing about the show. But if you're a casual viewer and it just keeps changing nights, how are you supposed to follow it?
I saw a lot of people online Wednesday asking, I thought it was coming on this week, and they missed it. So,
it doesn't feel like they're putting much advertising behind it, which I find quite shocking, especially because it did so well for the first half of the season. I mean, obviously there wasn't anything else at the time releasing anything new, so obviously this would be what they'd promote. But you think if it was doing well, they'd keep it going.
But the episode itself, I think, was really good. And I think this shows one thing. It is an anthology series, except for the serialized stuff like back at headquarters and Ben's through story and his journey on trying to get back home. But the rest of it is anthology. And these one-offs I really enjoy when they're just like a simple, sweet little story with a little adventure. And that's what I felt. It was like a little story.
I think that the show needs to be more clear in what it's trying to present to us. Is it a continuation of the show that we already knew from the 80s and 90s? Yes, we already know that that's what it's supposed to be. But if you're just going to reskin an old episode, then it should have just been a complete reboot. It doesn't seem like it's the right place to be doing a reskin of an old episode.
Well, that being said, how many careers were there back in the 80s and the 70s and the 90s? I mean, how many different jobs can somebody be doing that you leap into?
Well, there's an infinite number of possibilities, and they've only done 120 episodes, so there's still an awful lot that they could be pulling from. Infinity minus 120 is still infinity.
but it's got to have stakes. So if Ben leaps into somebody folding sweaters at Banana Republic,
it depends on the story you want to tell.
Is it going to have the stakes you need to keep an audience around for the hour?
Yeah, well, it depends on the story you want to tell. And I know I've said this a lot, but it just felt like they wanted to tell the same story they did in Roberto. It was fine then, it's fine now, but don't reskin an episode and pass it off as a new one, trying to continue a series when you could do something completely original. That's my feeling. I'm going to stand by it. All right, I'm allowed to have an opinion.
I'm sorry to keep going here, but I think it has something to do with that. We have this feeling, we have like this ominous feeling, like what if these are the final 5 for real, and we don't get a season 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And
you're exactly right.
They're using the third to last episode as like a filler episode when it could be like high stakes, everything thrown against the wall and stuff like this. And we have such a limited time. It's like with that Next Generation episode, Masks. They only had a few episodes to go in the whole series of Next Generation, and it's just, columns are growing and Data's talking funny.
Yeah. I don't know how I've become the Aftershow's Allison, but I also want to point out I actually did like what I watched. It just didn't feel like the right time to do it, and didn't feel like the right place to have it. So
Allison's come around now. She's pro Quantum Leap again.
Maybe I've inherited everything then.
I'm kind of middle ground on it. I really liked it, but I do realize that it was a reskin of Roberto. Yeah. I mean, it was. But it was good. I still liked it, and a new audience is going to like that kind of stuff. One of the things I think I wish they would do is have Addison walk through something once in a while. Good Lord. If you're a new viewer, you see her scan in, but do you realize that she's not actually there? Like, did she walk through a door or something? You don't know because she never walks through anything. They never say anything about it anymore. They just assume that you know. And some people probably don't if they're just joining in and trying it out. So they really need to get some budget going.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? It feels like they're expecting everyone to know what's going on. They're expecting everyone to have watched the original series and to know the lore. But at the same time, they're presenting things as though it's for the new viewers.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's budget.
I don't get it.
Well, I'm sure it's budget. I'm sure it is.
I agree with you about the hologram doesn't hologram as much as I would like. But I will say, I guess I represent the fan base of, yes, I watched the show in the 80s and 90s when it first aired. But I have not rewatched every episode many times since. So, Roberto, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I have a vague memory, but I mean, it's possible that I'm exactly the person that one of the people that they're targeting toward, who was a fan of the original show, loved Scott, loved Al, loved the concept, loved the heart, and loved the sci-fi of it, but doesn't necessarily remember like every season of every show of every episode of every season. So I have complete faith that you guys are right, that it is a rehash of a previous episode. That's but that holds nothing for me. Like Albie said, there's only kind of so many careers that you can pop in. And you're right, it does depend on the story you're telling. That's absolutely true. But if it's something where this is the type of person whose actions will affect a wide range of people quickly, there's, a dozen, 20 or so jobs that kind of spring to mind. And, working in news is probably one of them.
I think that's a bit of a cop-out, really. I don't think there's anything stopping the writers saying, all right, Sam leapt into these kind of jobs, Ben's leapt into these. But also, there's no reason you can't leap into the same sort of an occupation more than once and then do something different.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I am saying that for me, I'm not familiar with Roberto, so they could have done something different, but they did.
But
apparently they didn't. But it's fine to me that they didn't because I'm not as familiar with Roberto.
What's cool, John, is after this you can go watch Roberto and go, oh, they copied the new show.
Roberto is one of my favorites.
That's how time travel works, right?
Yeah. There has been great success with several shows that have been rebooted and then essentially done the same episode, in some cases even exactly the same script in their new series. There's been great success in that. So if that's what they wanted to do, then they should have just branded this show as a complete reboot of the series instead of branding it as a continuation. I think I'd be less critical of it if it wasn't branded as a continuation.
But this way they get to do both. Because
I don't think you get to double dip like that, though.
They're going for it. They're going for it. And go ahead.
Also, if you repeat yourself once every 30 years, you're not doing so bad, right? Yeah. And let's look at shows like I don't know, like procedurals or like courtroom dramas. They're the same show every show, all season, every season. And at least this one, it bounces around. Think of Dukes of Hazzard. I think those Duke boys were in trouble every week, but I tuned back in, and it was more. If you explain one episode of the Dukes of Hazzard, you've explained them all, I believe. Same with MASH. Same with Cheers. Basically, so at least the Quantum Leap has a good 30 that they pull from. So that's a different thing.
Yeah, like I said, I even if it wasn't Quantum Leap, even if there weren't another episode that it was reminiscent of, I heard the woman coughing. I saw he was standing right in front of the big drums of the chemical. Okay, I'm like, okay, I know that this is going to be that, and that was fine. And but even in that, even knowing that story, or even knowing this chemical is responsible for that, cough, the way that they tracked down the story was still interesting to watch. Like it was still like the beats were good. And like I said, I was more interested in what was going on back at the project. But that's not necessarily that wasn't a knock so much against the lead as much as it was like, I want to see what's happening back at the project. So that was actually a nice shift. Usually I'm more interested in the leap. And even when the project stuff is good, I still want I'm more interested in the leap story. So this is a flip for me.
I wanted to talk about the couple issues that we have because one is the special effects and one is the stories. A little birdie told me that because of the time crunch, because of the strikes and coming back and when the shows had to go to air and such a time crunch, they had to limit the amount of special effects they could do. And they actually filmed things that required special effects out of sequence ahead of time so that they could get them to the special effects people so they could get them done by air date. And it's still down to the wire on a lot of stuff. So that's why you're not seeing Addison walk through things or a hologram sticking out of the hockey puck or anything. They're doing as minimal as possible. Also, we haven't seen all of the final 5, and I think they put a lot of the special effects budget into the maybe final episode of the final 5. So I think we'll be able to judge it as a whole. And as far as the stories, I don't know this from anyone, but just from talking to Shakina last week, it seems like they wanted to do the musical. I know they had planned to do the musical. I think the musical was supposed to be written by Shekinah and directed by Deborah. Maybe. This is what I got from other things and put it together. But then Deborah was put on this one, and the musical didn't happen because they didn't have enough time. And Shekinah mentioned that a few times. They didn't have enough time, so they had to come up with a different story that they could do. So I think a lot of what we're seeing with maybe filler episodes or the best they can do in the time given, it has a lot to do with the strikes. So I think we should appreciate that they're still going and they still are giving us those 5 episodes as best they can, and not really being too critical of what they're giving us, because they're up against a wall. And I think, considering the situation, everybody's doing amazing.
Have you heard why they came back so quickly? Like it said, early spring was the teaser at the end of, season 2A, I guess you would call it. But they came back in winter really quickly.
I have not, but I've been told I'll be told. But
Okay.
I don't know yet. So that's interesting.
Well, I think that maybe they're thinking ahead that should the series be renewed, and from an outsider who's thinking objectively, it seems like a no-brainer to renew it because they did do so well when the show was being promoted so well, that it should be renewed. And maybe they're thinking that if they get these ones out as quickly as possible, they've got the time to do what they actually want to do in season 3. That's what I'm hoping for. Mm-hmm. And I still think that everyone, if they haven't yet, send the letter to NBC. Brian, please put the address up up here for everyone to send a letter to. Not just an email, but do send the physical letter as well. With a physical letter, they can't ignore it. And a letter is considered to be the views of 20,000 people. So every letter that gets sent is going to be...
And I think we're sending hockey pucks. We're sending hockey pucks to NBC. So send as many individually stamped hockey pucks as you can send to NBC offices. Send hockey pucks. John, you mentioned stuff at the headquarters. I think a lot of this episode is about the headquarters, and the leap is like secondary almost. But the headquarters stuff was really good. But I think a third element to this whole show was Ben and Addison's dynamic in this episode again. That's what I really enjoyed in this episode, because Addison, having broken up with Tom and not being as conflicted as she was and as lost as she was, I think she was free to enjoy herself again and kind of flirt and just be friends with Ben where she couldn't before. And I just felt that connection so much again that I just loved that feeling, especially when Ben was drunk and they were talking, but throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how that's going to play in with Hannah, because we know we're going to see her in the next episode and probably the last one. So what's going to happen there now that Addison's looking at Ben with goo-goo eyes again?
Oh, did you notice Eliza got a credit in this episode? And so I was expecting her to be in the show, but it was just like her answer machine. I was like, pom, pom, pom.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, how are they gonna, and she's definitely in next week's episode, right, Brian?
Right. Yeah. And she's in the description for it, the NBC description.
So I don't know if I like that Ben just asks Addison straight away, what's going on with Hannah? What happened to her husband? And she just tells him straight away. I thought maybe they should have been building up to something there. It does seem like if Josh is going to die anyway, GTF Dubs does want Ben and Hannah together. And the fact that it does seem like Ben and Addison are reconciling now, and I think this is where they're trying to actually get the love triangle in place for something big in the remaining 2 episodes. I'm keen to see what happens. Since they're kind of building up to a Days of Our Lives blow up, well, let's see what happens. At least they've got some good build up to it now.
I'm keen to see what happens too, but I'm ready for it to be over. I want that storyline to be done and solved somehow.
I have a question. Why didn't Ben leave a message? Hey, this is Ben from the grocery store. You shouldn't let anybody drive at all next year. No driving. Okay, that's it. something. Like Hannah would know if you say, "Hey, it's Ben. Don't let Josh drive." Josh would be like, "What's that about?" Oh, nothing.
it's
My
already
boyfriend, time traveler.
it's already
Well, he
happened,
was in
right?
1982,
Yeah.
right? And that would have been in
So he would have already
1971,
been dead.
Oh,
something like that.
so he's already
Yeah.
dead. So there's no reason to leave a message.
Yeah, he's
Right.
already dead at that
Well, then
point.
why didn't he leave a message anyway?
Well,
like, hey, it's Ben.
What good could come of it, though? What good
by a
could come of
pumpkin
it?
farm?
They can't get
Yeah.
together in
Yeah.
this time.
Let's
so
meet at Darby's.
He can just be like, hey, it's Ben. What are you wearing? Call me back.
I don't. I agree. Like I don't have an issue with the pacing of it. I'm glad that he asked right away, and I'm glad that Addison told him right away what Josh's fate was. But I did feel like you got to give me her number right now, and she actually she took the time to write it. I did call that number, by the way.
So did I.
Yeah, we did right before it came on.
It just doesn't connect.
No. That was a little disappointing. I thought okay, that maybe they set up an answering machine. That would be cool if they just left them at, hey, this is Hannah.
That would have been, yeah.
Although we're in the past right now, so it might be set up by the time the episode airs. I remember 24. Did you ever call the phone numbers on 24? It'd be like, hey, this is Jack Bauer. I'm busy right now.
Yeah, I used to love on
like that. Yeah,
the early 2000s TV shows, and the internet was just starting to get big, and most TV shows would show off some sort of website during the episode, and you could go to that actual website. The Amanda Show was a good one, and I think Third Rock from the Sun had one as well. Yeah, that was a lot of fun back in the day.
How I Met Your Mother always had a website for any website they mentioned, and it was great. And it was the website that they showed on the show, like The Best Night Ever when Marshall made that one. That was one of my favorite. Oh, I owned sluttypumpkin.com for a while. That was one of my favorite episodes of How I Met Your Mother.
I want the Robin Sparkles website.
Man, I played that album on repeat.
Let's go to the mall today.
Today.
It was great to know that Deborah directed this. Did you notice anything Deborah like in the direction? I enjoyed the direction, and it seemed very competent. And maybe I just felt like a warm feeling inside about this episode because I knew she was the one directing it.
Personally, then this is something I've kind of complained about on other episodes. Is it like there's a lot of them tend to be not monochromatic, but way tinted yellow, way tinted blue, like definitely like you're in the Matrix, kind of like not really saturated with the colors. But this one, I noticed, I definitely noticed that it had more of a palette, and that's something that I don't, again, it's not like a huge strike against it, but I personally prefer it. So I definitely took note of that. So thanks for that, Deborah.
That's a good point.
I actually really appreciated how Deborah directed the actress who played Connie. She came across as a very calming presence, strong, but very calming, very much in command the whole time. Someone who I think you would, someone.
She's good.
That's exactly it. She's someone who you would want to follow to find out what's going on in the world. Definitely. So I thought that was very much Deborah's influence.
I liked how Ben would come up and be like, you need to stop using the pesticide or, oh, you're going to die. And then she'd come up and say, okay, now we're going to get you to the doctor. And so that was a pretty good dynamic. Yeah.
I also like that, it was personally, that Ben leaped into a white guy, but he was working for people of color. That was nice.
Yeah, that was cool. I didn't think of that. I just thought Ben and Connie Davis made a great team. At the same time that Ben and Addison were making a great team. So it was very, very cool in that respect. Like the job and the mission of the episode wasn't as important as like the personal interaction. And I enjoyed both. I think every actor in this episode was really good. Even the guy with the Greg Brady wig on, he was pretty good.
The wig was
If this had been the original
Yes,
series, Ben and Connie would have ended up in bed together. You could see it a mile off.
Well, they had a spark when they hugged in the van. They both looked kind of awkward about it. So like, oh, okay, that was yeah, indication, but not like didn't have to run a whole storyline for it.
It did seem kind of convenient that they were able to find the memo. You think that would have been more heavily protected and hidden. I would have liked to have seen them from the project be able to find it or lead them to it or something like that. It just felt a little too easy finding that memo, even though obviously Ben had to fight off the guard.
Mhm.
Well, it was in a safe behind a picture frame. But the funny thing I thought of about the whole thing is these two are
Yeah.
brothers, right? That run Herbacor or whatever. And why would they sign a memo admitting to like a crime of hiding? Oh, we're going to sign this memo that we're committing the crime, that we know this is going to kill people, and here's my signature. What?
Because if they don't
Yeah.
sign off on it, then the product doesn't go because the people under it, the underlings aren't going to do it unless the boss tells them to do it. So they had to sign it to make them.
Well, I think it's so that if they do get sued down the track, that they've already admitted the culpability and they'll just pay them out straight away. I think it's more like they literally said it's going to be cheaper to just pay out the victims than it will be to make sure it doesn't go on the market or to try and fix it. So,
And maybe it wasn't so much a signature, just like maybe they were like if they got. I mean, I don't think it was an email, but like they were CC'd on the email, so he can't say he didn't know because he definitely got got the memo. He literally,
I saw it coming a mile off that the brother didn't really die in the explosion. I knew that he faked it.
I didn't. I was
Yeah,
surprised by that.
I did not.
Well, he was kind of the only link that they still had to Herbacor, so I would say you can't kill him off. So it made perfect sense to me that you wouldn't, that he wouldn't be in the explosion, especially because they couldn't find a body and all they could do was, say, all we can find is his wallet.
Yeah. The body thing.
So it seemed kind of obvious.
Yeah.
I did think for half a second, if the wallet survived, why wouldn't the body survive? Because I would think the body would need a lot more heat and length of fire than the wallet.
I noticed that when Connie got the phone call about the accident, it was daylight, but then immediately it's pitch dark and the fire truck's still there. And that was a little odd to me.
When I saw the fire truck, especially on that corner, I thought of what was it? The Family Business. What was it called? The last one Deborah directed?
The Family Style.
Oh, the Family Style.
Family Style. And there was in that one, there was a fire truck on that same corner, but a different angle because of the restaurant across the street.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh, okay. So she's done that one before, but this is a different angle, So that brought me out of it for a second, but it made me happy just to know. I was just thinking about what they were doing there.
Like I said, even though the storyline of the leap was kind of predictable, I think they did it in an entertaining way. It could have been predictable and not interesting. So I'll give them.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that.
This is an issue that I think we've been having in the past few episodes. This one, it was, as predictable as the tides. The episode beforehand, they literally held our hand through every single step of what was happening. I just wish that they wouldn't treat the audience as idiots and that they just, let us experience it as as they're trying to present it. Maybe I just watched too much Quantum Leap. Maybe that's just my issue. But yeah, I just haven't been surprised by anything in quite a while.
Yeah, I don't even think it's just on this show. There's other shows that I watch that are just like, you've seen it. But we've seen so many shows. I mean, we're of a generation where we've seen everything. And I guess it may be hard to surprise people like us.
Well, I think it's been said
sometimes.
There hasn't been an original idea in decades. And if anyone actually did come up with something really original, everyone would hate it. So it seems like a catch-22. But
probably.
Yeah. I still reserve my right to realize that something is done well, but still not like it very much.
Did you find the stuff at the project?
Yeah, I did actually. I knew straight away as soon as they said that one of them was going to have to go. I knew it was going to be Magic, because he's the one that's been contributing the least. And also, we know what's going on behind the scenes as well. He needs to go off to do Ghostbusters, so it makes sense that they'd have to write him out of the show somehow. I don't know if he's going to be in the final 2 episodes, and I don't know if he'll be back for season 3 if there is a season 3. But it did seem bleedingly obvious to me that as soon as he gets told someone has to go, that he'd volunteer. And I really felt too that they wrapped up the Chip storyline far too quickly. I know I've been whinging about saying they need to get on with it, but yeah, I really thought we were going to see something to do with blackmail and something to do with a few episodes of real tension. But no, Gideon just walks in, spills the beans on everything that's going on, gets Tom on side to say that you need to shut it down. Tom saves the day in a couple of minutes, and yeah,
I feel like
it's resolved by the time the Magic leaves.
I feel like there's going to be more.
I do hope so.
Yeah,
somehow with Gideon. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be more.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be more with Gideon. I liked that they didn't drag it out, and there was like a whole black. I wouldn't have. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see like a whole. I feel like that was one of the things that was less successful in the first season. Was kind of like the intrigue of like the project stuff and the spy stuff. I like tracking down leads. I don't.
Well, I think they've done better with the balance this year or this time around, but I just thought that they did wrap it up far too quickly. I mean, maybe they'll get the balance even better in season 3 if it's back for season 3. Let's hope.
I think there'll be more, not necessarily with the Chip, but I think there'll be more with Gideon. But yeah,
I have a lot of thoughts on Magic turning in his resignation. Just because he did that doesn't mean it'll be accepted, and probably will be, but that doesn't mean he won't be in the show anymore necessarily. And also, you got to remember, there's still 3 or 4 years in the future.
2
what
years,
is it?
Isn't it? Oh yeah,
probably
3
2027 now.
Right. And I still remember people saying that was temporary. So there may be even a reset coming. This I don't know. I don't know for a fact, but I have a feeling.
It wouldn't surprise me if we ended up seeing him have a relapse as well. I mean, if being in charge of Project Quantum Leap is helping his recovery by always having something to do and something to keep himself distracted with, I could easily see Beth showing up back at the project saying she needs help because Magic's relapsed. So I'm not saying that it's the end for him, but I could see it, a mile off that Magic was going to be the one to take the fall.
When she said that, I just heard Allison. So I was like, give Jen more to do. Give Jen more to do. She's not good at security. And then she's basically going to get fired for it, and Magic takes the bullet. I am looking forward to and dreading what Allison has to say about that when I listen to their episode.
Well, maybe this will give Jen more to do. Maybe she's going to take Magic's position now, right?
Well, I don't think she'd take his position, but I do think she'll probably take the reins unofficially.
Yeah. And have more to do anyway. So.
And I would want her to do something to kind of not make amends, but I guess kind of justify Magic taking the falling on the sword for her. Like she she needs to do some big thing that helps make things right. At least that's what I would want to see.
I still don't understand what Ian and Jen did. They used a computer chip, but they used a computer chip from a person that apparently supplies computer chips to every branch of the government.
The thing that they did was, when asked directly by Magic and asked directly by Tom,
and not only that too, they didn't have
the
authority to restart anything from the project after it had been shut down as well.
Yeah, and the chip was transmitting data to Gideon. That was the main thing at the beginning of the season, because the data was getting out. So they put a firewall on it. to block him from knowing.
Yeah.
But then Gideon just lets him have the chip, in this last episode. So I'm like, the whole point of him giving the chip was so he could get that data, and he's not getting the data. So why would he just, give up? Something doesn't make sense. So I think there's going to be a lot more.
In theory, if Ian and Jen had told Magic what was going on at the start of the season, things might have worked out differently. All the same stuff might have happened, but they'd have been under an umbrella of protection. And so it could have gone through like the quote unquote proper channels.
I don't know if that's the case. I think they would have just,
you know.
I think Magic would have just told them to shut it down because they didn't have the authority to do it.
But not after they found Ben, he wouldn't have said shut it down. That's what I'm saying. At the start of the season, after Ben is located, in like episode 2, when we found out like there's something going on with the chip, at that point, they had the choice to go to Magic and let him know what was going on, and they didn't. And I don't know if it would have made any difference, but like, it's like when I tell my kids, like, I already know what you did, but when you lie about it, you're making it worse. Now that's the crime. Stop lying about it, and let me now you're in trouble for that too. Just take the lumps. Take the lumps for the thing you did.
I did really like Ian giving their statement and then adding, I'm proud of what I did and I'd do it again. And you can put that on record. I was the only one who actually tried to find Ben after the project had gotten shut down, and I succeeded, and we've found him again, and, we've got a chance of bringing him home. So I'm proud of that. Yeah, I thought that was really powerful.
Ian had a great point. Everyone just left Ben for dead and gave up. Ian was the only one that didn't. And that was my point, I think, when about Addison. Like, Addison gave up as well, and it was just crazy to me. And of course, Ian would go and find whatever technology needed to find anyone from the project. I don't think they did anything wrong. So I think it was a whole lot of hubbub and drama about nothing. I just don't get the crime. Like, I understand why they're reacting to it, but I don't.
They're making the point that even though the ends do justify the means, they still have to take responsibility for what they've done, and the fact that it wasn't following the rules is what they're getting across.
Just on a side note, I did like, like we talk about a lot of times in relationships on this show. They're kind of telling us what the state of the relationship is, but we don't necessarily see it, like between Tom and Addison, and between Ben and Addison at the first season. The last episode, Ben calls Ian his best friend. And they've done that a couple of times. But we don't really get to see that because, the show starts and Ben's already leaked. But I like flashes like this, like you said, Hayden, where you can see, their best, like, this is what you would do for your best friend. Not, this isn't just a coworker. This isn't even just a good friend. This is your best friend. And I like when we get glimpses of, when we get to see indications of the relationships that people.
And don't forget too, we know that Ian is still going to spend decades writing the cheat code and waiting for Ben to leap into the future after the nuclear winter to, give him the cheat code and make it possible for him to save Addison. I don't know if those events still happen in the current timeline, but they've happened in another timeline anyway. So we do know the lengths that Ian will go to help Ben.
The best part about all this was we got to see more from Mason, and Mason's amazing. And just sitting in front of the computer clickety-clacketing is just wasting their talent, I think. But this scene and this bit of the episode really showed their talent.
And some strength in the character, standing up for themselves and putting out what they believe in. I like that part of it. That was a little different this time.
Do you think, we know the behind the scenes about Ernie Hudson, but within the show, and it also makes sense that Magic would take the hit. But as far as like, if you were making the decision, do you think it's fair? Like you said, Albie, the resignation might not be accepted. If I feel like Magic should keep his job and Jen should not. I get that that's not what they're doing, and I'm fine with that. But like, if it was your call, what would you accept his resignation?
Yeah, Magic, he's been leaped into twice. He's got a direct connection to, Quantum Leap from 30 years ago, too. So why would they let him go with that kind of connection? Jen seems more of the choice to make
Mm.
since she's less, she can't fix the code and she's just security. So it seems like Jen would go.
I think they trust Magic's judgment, though. Magic knows that Ian and Jen are the ones that are needed there more than he is. So and the other thing too is you can't force someone to work if they don't want to, even if it is a government agency run by the military. There's no reason why Magic is under any obligation to stay there.
I'm of two minds. I think this might be like step one in burning down the house before a reset. Before like time resets and everything's back to normal. Like you ever watch one of those episodes of like, say, Star Trek Voyager, and like something bad happens, you're like, oh, that sucks. But then like 3 or 4 more bad things happen. Like the series is not going to continue. So of course there's going to be a reset. So this might be part one of that. And my other thought was Ernie probably makes a lot more money than Narissa. And I don't know if you watch the opening credits, but there's like 17 or 23 producers. So a lot of the money has to go to those people, even if they're not part of the show anymore, because they were like created it, brought it back, and did all that, and they're still getting a paycheck. So I think they gotta cut down the budget a little bit if they're going to hope to get season 3. So that might be part of it. I want to talk about the possibilities of season 3, the next 2 episodes, the rest of the final 5. But we have an interview with Deborah Pratt, and we're so happy to have Deborah Pratt back, and we're getting to talk to her all the way from Africa. She's living the life. Awesome. She's living her best life. She's traveling the world, and she took some time out to talk with us. And I want to go to that. But Hayden, do we have any sponsor for this week? We got any bills to pay? I know we need the money. No. Okay. It's brought to you by patrons, patrons like you. So go to patreon.com/quantumleappodcast and make sure you like it, you follow it, you join one of the levels. I think you get a bookmark. I know you get all these behind the scenes clips that have been coming out lately. I don't know who's doing that, but I like it.
There'll be some interesting stuff from this episode.
we got a new server coming about, and we got more editing to do, and we got to do it in a more timely manner. So help us out. Help a leaper out. Okay, so thank you to everyone who's already a patron, and thank you for people who are about to become a patron. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. And here is the great, the one, the only, the kind, the intelligent, my spiritual leader, Deborah Pratt.
Woo!
Long about now, I bet that boy wishes he had a parachute.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie, and we're here with Brian Greene. And we are so fortunate to have the wonderful, fabulous, beautiful, intelligent, kind Deborah Pratt. How you doing, Deborah?
Good morning. At least it's morning here.
We're fans. Yeah, it's late night here. So tell us where you are. I'm so excited for you.
I am in Uganda, Africa, and I am on a tour with an amazing man, a travel expert named Peter Greenberg. So he is shooting a show about Uganda, and I get to be part of it. So not on screen.
That is amazing.
Back screen, behind screen.
We are here to talk about the 11th episode of season 2.
Yes.
The Outsider, directed by Deborah Pratt. This is your second director credit for the new Quantum Leap series?
Yes, it is.
Tell us all about it. Yeah. How did you get this episode? When did you hear about it? Tell us things.
Well, we knew we were going to do another one. I knew I was going to do another one, and we waited for the strike to end. We shot the first 8, and then we waited for everything to come back up. And so they gave me one. They seemed to give me the ones that are highly emotional, which is great, because to me, those are the closest to the original Quantum Leap series. And It's a great story about a woman's comeback who's lost her career and lost her courage, and I think Nadine Ellis does a brilliant job on pulling it off. The entire cast just nailed it from the audition going forward, and we got to shoot all over the Universal lot. There's a spoiler alert if you're listening to this before the show airs, where we shot
Mhm.
at Bates Motel. So if you ever go on the tour,
I saw that.
that's kind of
Ah,
cool.
So cool.
And actually, here's a bit of trivia. The gentleman that's inside with the phone when she makes the phone call plays Norman Bates at the tour. So if you take the tour, he's going to come after you with a knife. Nicest man. I apologize,
Wow.
I couldn't do his name.
Yeah, that looks so familiar, and I was like, "Oh wait, they're on Universal lot. Oh, that's the Psycho Hotel Motel. That's so crazy." So was the Psycho house right behind there?
Yes, it is. We had to shoot
Wow.
low to make
wow.
sure we didn't get the family dwelling behind.
Yeah, Nadine, she was amazing. I thought like we found our next leaper if we ever get a third series. She was just that good.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people say she should get a spin-off, and that should be her series. An investigative reporter in 1986, I think it was. She's an incredible actress. From the moment I saw her do that audition, I knew that's who was had to be Connie, and she just did a great job. I'm really happy with her. The entire cast.
I think she and John Marshall Jones should do a series by themselves. The character Davidson, I loved.
Oh my God, he's so good, and there was some fans. Some of the actors grew up with him on his series, and so there was a little bit of gushing going on, including Ben, including Ray. And I'm trying to think of who else. I think Caitlin too knew him growing up, and a couple of the writers. So he was a little bit of a rock star on the set, which was great. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a TV show right there. Kind of the beauty of Quantum Leap for sure.
Yeah, I would totally watch that. Were you involved in all the casting? Is that how that works as a director?
Absolutely. A lot of times, sometimes if the studio has an actor or a big name, especially that they want to push forward, that sometimes you have to take a back seat to that as a director. But for the most part, you choose everything. You approve wardrobe, you approve casting, you approve locations, you approve. It's your picture. And the beauty of Quantum Leap, it's a new movie every week.
Yeah.
Because of the strikes, when did you get this story? When did you know what script you're directing? Was it a very compressed process?
Well, the story was in the works, early in that sense, but it changed quite a bit over the course of things. We got a first draft from Rami, and then notes from Dean and Martin, and then they brought in Margarita, who's an incredible writer, and Margarita did the final polish and made the changes and just tightened it up. And we talked about the making it more suspenseful. I really wanted, and she really wanted it too, to have the edge of a Michael Clayton kind of story. And it's an important story in the sense that we're dealing with what big pharmaceutical companies and big agricultural companies do to us, and their bottom line is, it's cheaper to put this product out and let people die and deal with the costs of paying their medical bills. And that's a sad thing to be, but it's a truth. When you look at companies like DuPont, who are still out there doing it, and there's one that closed recently, went out of business finally after years of torturing people. But it still happens, and to have the opportunity to call it out is always a great Quantum Leap story. And then we've got the parallel story of what was happening back at headquarters, and I got to really work. It was one of those shows where I was able to find a true dramatic moment for everybody in the show, for Ian, for Magic, for Caitlin. Um, and then, we got the parallel story of what was happening back at headquarters, and I got to really work. It was one of those shows where I was able to find a true dramatic moment for everybody in the show, for Ian, for Magic, for Caitlin. For Ray, everybody in the show, even Jen, and then also our guest stars, James and Peter, got true moments in the show. So that was really exciting. And I really enjoyed drawing them out. That's the other thing that I think I am given latitude just because I'm old school and they respect it.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment in the records room where Ben says, I never knew you wanted to be a reporter. And she says, you know, I've got my secrets. And they connect back together, I think, in that moment that they've been apart since the beginning of the season. And that's the moment that they reconnect. And I really got to take the time to let it happen. And they were beautiful on taking the direction and playing out the chemistry of what had happened in the beginning, what made them fall in love with each other in the beginning. So that was a real moving piece for me. And I think the same thing when Connie comes out of Dennison's office and she's given up, she's quitting, and she just falls apart. And as a matter of fact, the studio said there was one take that I absolutely loved, and they went, "No, wait, that's way too dramatic." I said, "It's a 10 o'clock show. It's a drama. What are you talking about? It's way too dramatic." So we ended up using the version, but she's excellent. She was excellent in every take, so they couldn't take anything away from her. And then in the van, there's another wonderful moment with she and Ben, where Ben, you know, says, "This is just the beginning. You haven't ended your life. You've just started it." And she was so vulnerable in that moment where you think, I can do it again. And he said, "Yeah, you're going to need a producer." So, I mean, it was just really well written and well done and well performed. And I think we captured it. So I felt good as a director capturing all that. And then there were a couple of things that I put in there, like a Dutch angle when he gets knocked out. And that was really fun. And usually the network and the studio hate that kind of stuff, but it worked. It absolutely worked. It wasn't just random. And the tension of, you know, his spidey senses came out. I said, I want you to feel like your spidey senses have come out, and you think you're hearing something, and you think, and then you're right. So it was a fun show to shoot.
It was a beautiful episode, and I mean this in the best possible compliment. It felt to me like an original series episode. I think you could have slated, you know, Scott and Dean right in there, and it would have worked the same. Like the emotion, the heart was there, and I was like so amazed watching it. And then I was like, "Oh yeah, it's Deborah, of course."
Of
Thank
course.
you.
There was a moment, like you said, in the file room with Ben and Addison, and they pause and they just look at each other, and then you know, and that came across so beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying so.
It was perfect. So.
Yeah, I really wanted that, and I thought it was really important to establish them again. And Caitlin's speech about, you know, first you left and then you died, and I had to deal with that. I thought she nailed that with so much emotion, and so you really get to understand who she is in that moment of what's been happening to her. We've been so with Ben, we never get to be with her and her emotions. So that was her moment. And I thought Ray was brilliant of how he played when she finally tells him the truth. I got engaged, and then I got unengaged. So
That was probably one of the best moments of the episode. I really loved Drunk Ben, and I loved Caitlin in this episode. Caitlin nailed the whole episode, and she just had this, it was crazy. She had this joy. She was emanating this joy that, like, the possibility of being with Ben again, but without playing like smiling and happy, but it was there somehow. It was.
she's a
How
good
did you direct all
actress,
that?
and you know, it's
yeah.
usually the second and third year where you really get into the ensemble characters, and you get to go deeper into their feelings and their worlds and their emotions. And so I really wanted to take advantage of that with her, and I think we did. I really do.
And
Sure.
probably the best moment all season for Mason was that scene with Peter. Tell me about that.
We talked about the scene, and they originally played the scene sitting. And I said, I think you want to stand up. Let's find a place where you just stand up and tell Tom the truth about why you did everything you did, and that you really aren't ashamed of it. And they nailed it. The emotion that was there, the anger, but also the compassion of why you do something for someone that you care about. So, I mean, Mason is an incredible actor, and they go there all the time, but I don't think the show has given them the opportunity to express that kind of, passion.
Strength.
So I'm proud
Exactly.
I'm proud of that.
Hopefully they see what they can do, and there's more of that in the future. Another moment I really loved, and I noticed like how well it was done, was when Addison and Tom say goodbye, and there was some nice shots in there, and I noticed some kind of like, did you shoot through glass or something? There was like a nice little tiny reflection if you look.
Oh yeah,
and it's just beautiful.
Anna is an amazing director of photography, and we've shot the headquarters so many times in so many places, and I said I want to find a unique way to look at it. And so she moved some of the ziggies and some of like the back ziggies, and there's a glass door there. And she shot through that door and lit so that it got that that filtered effect. And it was romantic and touching and soft. And there was a lot of pain going on in that scene from both Tom and Addison, trying to figure out how to say goodbye. And I let them play it a couple of different ways, but we chose the one where they were grateful for each other, but they were sad, and I thought it'd been beautifully set up in the other episode at Princeton, where Tom said, I miss my wife. And you really got the feeling of he's next chance at happiness is so close. And then when he played that scene in the hallway where in the main headquarters area, where Addison tried to talk to Ian, but they walked away, and Tom says, I'm the guy from the Department of Defense. And but the moment when he said, I think when you look back on this, if you keep staying in the past, you'll never get to the future. So he was fighting for her. And I think she was realizing it too. And and each step of the way, that's what I loved about the script. Each step of the way took it another step closer, another step closer, another step closer. So we got to understand each of those characters. So it was a real character episode. I mean, besides the drama of what was happening in the league itself. And of course, James's Gideon is fabulous. And I really wanted him to, I asked him to play the child man. And you'll know more about why when I say that. But he, just opening on the close-up of the Newton's game and letting him play it as a spoiled rich billionaire tycoon person comes across like all of them to me, and he really captured it. I thought good cast.
Definitely.
Yeah, amazing. A lot of the season-long stories like come to a head in this episode. Was that a lot of pressure, or did you feel complimented that they gave it to you to wrap up those things?
Oh, I felt very complimented, and truthfully, that's just the beginning of the wrap up. I think that's why we're going next week to do a double header, and you're gonna get your minds blown. Get ready. But
Very
yes,
cool.
I felt that I was trusted with some important storytelling information, and Anna Abogadu made it beautiful, and everybody came with their A game. There was just every performance. And I wanted to make sure that that was shown in the storytelling process. So we did it. I think we did it. We'll see what the fans say.
Where did the title "The Outsider" come from? Do you know?
I did not ask the writers that, but I think it's always a double entendre when it comes to Quantum Leap. Ben is the outsider that comes into the situation, but I think Connie was also the outsider coming into the situation. And then James was an outsider coming into the situation. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
change that was unfolding. And but those three key storylines, I think, helped define what the title was about and what it meant, and how it was allowed to play out. So,
That makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
But I have to ask Rami and Margarita if there was a specific take on why. But I think that's really what it was. It was just all these people who were coming from the outside to solve a problem. And even Robbie, who's a bit who is a whistleblower. He's at the heart of it, but he can't live with it in that sense. So it's smart stuff, to say the least. It's great for the kind of audience that I believe the Quantum Leap viewers are. They're highly intelligent. You don't have to tell them what's happening. You lead them down a path and they figure it out probably as fast as you do, which is great. And you don't tell them whose side to stand on. You just say, this is the story. How do you feel about it? And they feel about it. I was reading some interesting commentary on Reddit. It just kind of popped up in my feed. And they were talking about, somebody was saying, well, I was watching the original series and they were using the N-word a lot. And it was the episode of The Color of Truth when he leapt back in time. And then I responded and said, well, that was historically accurate, and people do. And the fact that we've decided to become politically correct, I think changing history is problematic, because if you don't look at what the history was, you're going to relive it in the future. So there was some interesting things in it where then somebody said, well, they've changed it in several where they bleep it out, or they blur it, or they replace the words on several of the streamers, which I did not know about. And again, it's the political correctness of, hey, I don't want to offend you or hurt your feelings. But the truth is, when Scott so brilliantly played how it felt to have that word thrown at him, you, the audience, got to walk in his shoes. So it gave you a whole other compassionate look at, wow, that's what that feels like. So that's the history of what the show is about. And it saddens me that the courage to do it and put it out there as it was created wasn't there by those streamers. And I can't remember who they were, but that's wrong to do that in the sense. Good television, good storytelling is not about making you feel warm and fuzzy and comfortable all the time. We can get you there, but sometimes we want you to feel the passion of the moment, to feel the pain of the moment. And this show does that in a lot of senses. This episode did it in ways of a woman who is, not 30 years old, not 20 years old, not starting her career. It's ageism in a sense, but it's also dealing with what it's like to be a woman in any period, but certainly in the 80s, where you're trying to fight to be of substance and the system won't allow it. And she also gets caught of pushing so hard to be that tough guy reporter, and she pushes too far and costs the guy's life. And then to have it a deja vu moment like that, where it happens again in the middle of a story. And I thought, again, their performance in his office was so honest. You know, when he says, "This is it," and she goes, "This is it," and walks out, and you think her life is over, and how's Ben going to get her back? You know, it's that great roller coaster ride of quantum leaps of, oh no, it looks like it's going to get together, and they're going to make it, and then all of a sudden, zoom. So that's the fun of the show.
How did you feel like, from your perspective, going into this episode being the second of the new series you directed versus the first?
How did I feel? It's a different show. I mean, and I say this all the time. 30 years ago, I tried to tell them that Quantum Leap could do everything that Star Trek can do. Star Trek has had 9 television spin-offs, 9 feature films. Why are you waiting? Why are you sitting on this franchise? I still don't understand it to this day. And each of those shows is a different version of Star Trek. This is a different version of Quantum Leap. And I hope there are 8 more. So it's really, for me, at first, I was very protective of the lore. And then I realized, you know, they're honoring it for sure, but they're adding to it. And so once I relaxed into it and said, all right, let's see where this goes, because here's someone with a different perspective than I had. You know, part of my perspective was tied to Don and his military background. Part of it was the network only giving us a very little amount of money, so we couldn't really go to the present and rarely go to the future just because of costs. And I was thrilled to finally have headquarters where you could access it, and who's there. You know, Gushi was there, and Al went back. But the opportunity to really get into it and see where Ziggy lives, and there's the opportunity coming, I think, where Ziggy will be a much more prevalent part of the storytelling, because she is the foundation of everything that's happening, the future and the past. So to answer your question, I think it was challenging at first, but then exciting once I said, let me go with the flow. It's like on this trip, I'm riding the rapids on the Nile. We do the first run, and I'm in one of the I'm in the paddle boat. So there's 6 of us paddling. And they said, when you come into the rapids, grab hold of the rope, take your oar and put it down, and get down as low as you can. And I was thinking through my mind, grab the rope, take the oar. And by the time I got to get down as low as you can, I was out of the boat in the Nile. And luckily, I held on to that rope. I did not go all the way away. And I was so exhilarated by the moment of, the water didn't feel mean, if that makes any sense at all. It lifted me very gently and just took me out, like, we're taking you away now. and I enjoyed it in a weird way after I got back in the boat. But I was like stoked, you know, just excited by the fact that I ran the first rapid of the Nile and survived. And if like I said, I'm going to post some of this water downstream where the rapids are insane, as the Lake Victoria funnels into this tiny channel to become the Nile. And I think that's us mimicking nature in a story like that. You've got this big whole wide world of Lake Victoria, but we have this whole big wide world of story. And you take that story and you find 2 or 3 people to tell it, and you ride with their emotions on it. And it gets dangerous and it gets scary, but suddenly you come out on the other end and you've learned something. So to me, this adventure that I'm on right now is really just an opportunity to look at how life is so much of nature and so much of storytelling. And that as a good storyteller, as a writer, as a director, as whatever, you want the opportunity to take your reader, your viewer on a ride, to feel what you wrote and to feel it in their own bones. So it becomes their story. And Quantum Leap, to me, is the best show ever created that does that every week, because you just never know where you're going.
There's some people that are getting nervous in the fan community because we haven't heard about a season 3 yet. Is there any indication either way that you could give us?
You know, that's why we have fans. So get nervous. Write to. I saw somebody did a post for a campaign to write in and say, "Don't take this
Yep.
show away." You know, the truth of streaming and networks and everything changing the way it is. They're terrified of not having the viewership, but I've seen the numbers. We're doing really well. Thank you to the original fans that have come back. We're finding new fans because people forget this show never went off the air. It went into syndication on USA Network, and then it went into syndication worldwide, and then it stayed in syndication. So I will go into meetings and there'll be a 28-year-old or a 35-year-old executive sitting behind the desk, and they'll look at me and say, "Oh, well, before we start, I just need to geek out for a moment because I watched Quantum Leap with my mom and my dad and my grandparents, and we would talk about the shows." And it's so heartwarming to find someone that loves the show that much. So it would be sad to take it away after 2 years, and stupid, in my opinion, Universal, NBC.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think the fans, if they write about it, if they comment on it, that it's not like when we did it back in, or the fans did it really back in 1992. I think we had major letter writing campaigns, and it kept the
Yes.
show on the air. It's frustrating because we've moved it a third time already. This is our third, location. So it makes it a little bit challenging for people to find it. And because it really is a family show, 10 o'clock, at least give us 9 o'clock. You're going to move us again.
Amen.
If we do get a season 3, hopefully we get a season 3. We're trying. You get to direct another episode, right?
I'm hoping, yeah. I don't see why not.
Do you get to write any? Do you get to write any? Is that ever in the future?
I haven't. I'm still trying to do the feature films, so I have not offered my services in that way, and so I don't know. I have a couple of ideas for sure, because this show has always been pretty easy for me to write. So I have some ideas that of stories that I'd love to tell. Yeah.
Well, like you mentioned Star Trek. Star Trek, they just started. They're going to be starting to do made for the streaming service movies. So is that ever in consideration, like a made for, say, Peacock movie?
It is a consideration. I mean, we haven't talked about it, only because, again, it's weird. Paramount got franchising. I don't know that Universal really has when it comes to TV. Their attitude is it's a television series. Well, so was Star Trek. Hello? So I feel good about that. Yes, all those possibilities are there, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, wherever we can watch it, we'll watch your work. Absolutely. And before we go, can you tell me what you brought to this episode? Because to me, you brought all the heart, but like something that we might not know, that it was your touch that did it while we watched the episode.
Well, definitely the heart, because in each opportunity that I could find for the actors, I wanted to give them a moment of drama. And I was very even-handed about that. Really went through the script and found opportunities for. I mean, I'd never seen Ernie in any of his work do what he did in this show. And to really lift them and guide them and push them a little bit to take that next chance. And they trusted me. And then just a few things that, like I said, the Dutch angle, I wanted to do that just to set up some classic film callback. I'm trying to think. There was
Mhm.
something else I did. Well, there were a couple of things where I had to kind of create shots by taking the film and flipping it and reversing it. So there's a backwards shot here and there of something that I couldn't get because we shot it in 7 days, which was crazy. But it definitely had my stamp on it. And as one of the parents of Quantum Leap, I wanted to make sure that was there. So I did.
Job well done. Flawless record. A Deborah Pratt episode is always a great episode.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
and the ask to have Matt Dale at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Yes.
it broke my heart. I got to see him this summer in London, and we were talking back and forth about his Kickstarter and how he was excited about the book, and he sent me the book, so I have a signed copy of all 3 books. And I will miss him dearly. He was like behind my new Warrior One series. I wrote a graphic novel called Warrior One, and he was giving me ideas on the network. On the website for Warrior One World. And he was just a good guy, and I'm grateful that I got to know him. And his book kept me sane in that big span of 20 some odd years when people would say, "Hey, let me ask you a question about Quantum Leap." And I would go, "Oh my God." And I would open that book to whatever show it was. And all the details were there. And it just made me remember so much of doing the original show and carrying it into the new show as well.
It's
That's
an
amazing.
amazing moment, and we're all very grateful that you were able to do it.
Thank you. Universal stood behind me. Martin and Dean stood behind me. Everybody wanted it, once they had known who he was and what he had done. And like I said, the studio and the network, who rarely will do that, understood how important he was to all of us,
Yeah.
And he makes you appreciate what you do even better. You guys are great at it, and I love coming on the show, and I think jarring my memories, not just about that, but about this show, not about just about the original one, but about the new series as well. You all bring that 100% to the table, and I think the fans appreciate you as much as I do, if not more.
Deborah Pratt, thank you so much for giving us some of your time while you're on this amazing adventure in Africa. We so appreciate it.
Oh,
thank you so
mine
much.
too. And anytime I do anything Quantum Leap, I'm here for you. You know that.
Like a piece of cake.
And we're back. Wow. Deborah freaking Pratt. My goodness. I mean, she is an amazing person, and I truly love her. I remember the first time I spoke with her. It was a life-changing experience, and I told everyone I know, even people that had no idea who she was or no idea who I was and didn't care. But that's how excited I was. And now I don't even know how many times I've spoken with her, and that's just an amazing, mind-blowing thing to just be on that kind of communication level with such a great person, someone I admire so greatly. So it was great to talk with her. Yeah, and the time she's having in Africa, wow, man, that's like one of those bucket list things, like you think, wow, that would be cool to do one day, but she's actually doing it. So thank you so much, Deborah. Yeah. That's so great.
She was the same way with me when we did the Leap Back 2009 convention. Super helpful, communicative, and just a great friend.
Yeah, I remember when I interviewed her for the Starbright project, and we just laughed all the way through. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I remember when I watched the interview that you did. It was super cool.
She's just the heart of Quantum Leap, and I think a lot of it has to do with her. If it wasn't for her, I don't think we'd be doing what we're doing. So thank you, Deborah. And she's of course on a trip to Africa. John Irons, you were on assignment last week. Tell me a little bit about where you were and what was going on, but not too much, because I think we have a special coming out about that, right?
Yes, I was last week. Was it just last week? That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind adventure. So Chris in New York, host of the co-host of Quantum Leap podcast, Chris DeFilippis, let me know that he had an extra ticket. Basically, he had an extra ticket to Scott Bakula's show, The Connector, in New York. And it's like, hey, this was on Thursday. He sent a message out to like this group of podcasters that like he's, as you know, he's been on my show a few times, Captain Game, several times actually. Do any of you guys think you can make it up to New York for the show? And they're in Texas, they're in Florida, they're in Alabama. I'm in DC, or basically I'm right outside DC. I'm like, that's
doable.
I could maybe, in theory. Let me look around and see if I can do it. And I looked around and I could do it, and then I did it. It was great. So I took the train, met Chris for the first time, actually, even though I've known him for several years. We set up, and we went to see Scott Bakula in his show, The Connector. There is a longer show where we'll talk about it later, but I will, spoiler alert, the show was great. It was really, really good. And afterwards, there was about 30 minutes of Q&A with Scott, where he just took questions from the audience. And then after that, there was a line where we got to get stuff signed, shake his hand, take a photo. It was fantastic.
Did you get to ask him a question?
Awesome. I did ask him a question.
I won't.
But Chris asked a question during the Q&A. I'm not. Chris asked a question during the Q&A, and I asked a question in the line. So I was like, I told him, look, I'm not great at the interviews, but there is one question I definitely want to ask him that. Yeah. So I hope I get the chance to. So you guys will hear it. I hope the audio came out okay. You could hear that.
I did love the picture that came out of Scott holding the hand link up as a tribute to Dean. I've put that one up on the podcast for everyone to see, just because I thought it was a really great picture.
That was a nice moment. It's very cool.
I really enjoyed from afar seeing the JD and Scott show. That was pretty cool. It was awesome that we're given permission to film it, and we were on hand to do it. And it was great that you did it, John. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for even, inviting me into the Quantum Leap podcast world. Again, as I say, I'm not, I'm not as stalwart a fan of the show, or at least not as knowledgeable a fan of the show. So, I am every week when you're like, do you want to be on? Like, really, me again? You sure?
Yes. You.
So yeah, but I'm truly grateful, and thank you guys for inviting me in.
Well, you bring up our handsome level quite a bit, so that helps. And you're intelligent and funny, so charming. All the things. How'd the rest of that night go?
After we got dinner with some other people that Chris knows through the podcast, Karen and Suzanne Smiley.
She was with us for a while. She's doing articles and stuff for us back in the original QLP days. She's Karen most famous for the music replacement article, I think.
It was and after that we went to the Back to the Future show. So I think I inadvertently took your tickets, if I'm not mistaken. So
you did not take them, sir. They were given as a gift.
Well, they were received with love and the intent as intended.
Yes. Originally, it was supposed to be me and Serenity and Chris doing all this, but we do get a chance to go back in time because I just found out not too long ago that Serenity and myself are going to have another chance to do that trip all over again. So that'll be fun.
Chris gets to go back to the Future.
Yes, he gets to see it twice and the connector twice.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's pretty awesome.
It is. Go back in time.
Back in time. So I can't wait. So we're going to try to get the same seats when we go. It'll be, the reason we're doing it is because spring break coincides with the extension of the show. So the connector's actually been extended till March 17th now. So, so we're able to go because me and Serenity were very sad due to prior contractual obligations. We were not able to go. So now we are, and hopefully we get a chance to, see Scott. Say again.
Take beads. You're going during spring break?
Oh yeah. Oh, we're not going. We're not going there. We're going to New York City, NYC. So we're going to see all kinds of cool stuff, and maybe
you're running away from the spring breakers in Florida, aren't you?
A little bit. If I have time, I'll show Rennie around my hometown in New Jersey. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's definitely happening this time. Luckily, the connector was so good they extended it. So I feel like they extended it for me. So that's great. And of course, everybody at the show is great, and they offered me and Serenity tickets anytime we could make it. So we're taking them up on that. And we're going to try to get the third row seats in Back to the Future. John, was the third row the best row? That's what Chris said.
The third row was a great row.
Okay,
I 1000% made eye contact with the guy playing Marty McFly several times.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Should I be jealous?
A little bit. That's fair.
Okay.
At the end, I was like, "You nailed it," and he's like, "I got you."
Oh, awesome!
I should have been recording. It was really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, Chris said the first two rows are cheaper because the first two rows were cheaper than the third row because you can't really see on the first two rows as well. So I just went with the third row because he said, I don't know. So I figured you would. But I'll talk to Chris too before I buy tickets again. So we'll see. But can't wait to do that. And the special's coming out soon. So look for that. We're going to have the whole Scott Bakula Q&A with JD Schwartz and Scott Bakula talking about Quantum Leap and the connector. If you haven't seen the connector yet, tickets are still available. Go down to the link below. Get your tickets. See Scott Bakula live.
I would not be surprised if this was nominated for stuff. Like, it was really, really good.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Okay, back to The Outsider. I think Ben and Addison are going to get back together.
But how?
I think Ben's coming home.
Well, if there's no season 3, he's coming home.
I think he's coming home. I don't think they're going to leave us hanging. And maybe they'll use the wrong spelling of song at the end. I don't know.
Do you think someone else will be the leaper?
Well, we still have to have Walter Perez leaping around, and he hasn't started that yet. So that might be how this season ends. Ben leaps back, and then Walter starts leaping. I don't know.
I think the overarching kind of mystery of the season is the code, the bring Ben back code. So yeah, it might work or it might not work, but also who did it. And I mean, I think the implication is Hannah or, some descendant of Hannah. But I don't know. Like, I kind of, you're right. It feels like he should be coming home, but I don't want him to come home because I see it at the show. Like, I don't want another leaper. I want Ben. Everybody's project's great, but I want Ben leaping.
Yeah, it seems pretty obvious that the reason they've written the code in is so that they can bring him home and wrap up the entire series if they're not going to be renewed. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they filmed multiple endings to the last episode. One that could serve as a series finale and one that can serve as a season finale should it be renewed. Yeah. So
they filmed one ending and it accomplishes both.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay.
So I think like that's as far as I know. My only guess is that if Ben does come home, then there's something bad happens and he's forced to maybe have to leap again. But
again. Yeah.
yeah, but that's season 3 if we get it. If not, he's home. That's my only guess. But I have a prediction that this final episode coming up next week, even because we're doing a double episode, right? So next
Right.
week we're going to see the final episode of season
right.
2 of Quantum Leap. My prediction is it's going to be the best episode of Quantum Leap of all time of the new series.
Well,
Okay,
Martin
I was
Garrow said that on Twitter the other day, didn't he?
Who did?
Martin Garrow.
Oh yeah,
Well, we can definitely hope.
yeah. So I can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed and excited that we're getting 2 episodes back to back. Because of course I want them all now, but I also want to think about it and guess about it and wait in the anticipation. So it's going to be like boom, boom.
I wonder if it's intended to be seen as one big episode, or if it's actually 2 sort of standalone ones that they're just airing back to back. I guess we'll
People I know were very surprised that they were airing both of them in one night because they don't necessarily go together.
Okay.
So, of course, they could be like misleading me just so I enjoy the show. That's possible too. Because I mean, really, what does a set construction person know?
Yeah.
Or whoever.
So anyway,
it might be.
Brian, what do we actually have next week?
What? Yeah. What are the 2 episodes?
Yeah. 2 episodes. The first one's going to be As the World Burns. It takes place in 1974. Ben leaps into the body of a Baltimore firefighter in 1974 and is unexpectedly reunited with his time-crossed love, Hannah, and her son, Jeffrey. Trapped in a towering inferno, Ben must find a way to repair their troubled relationship and save their lives before it's too late.
So we'll probably see that
followed by
same fire truck in the alley again.
You said 74, so this is 4 years after they last saw each other.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So how old is
74.
Gideon in 74? I mean Jeffrey in 74.
Oh.
14.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
So we're talking a different actor.
Could be. Yeah.
Think they could age him up to 14 because he's 10 or 11 in real life, something like that. 10.
Get him a haircut. Put him in a suit.
Everybody looks better in a suit. Everybody looks older in a suit.
Everybody looks older in a suit.
So, firefighter was Sam ever a firefighter? Like, is this going to be a retelling of the Kitty in the Tree?
That was the only firefighter that I remember him being.
Yeah. So maybe he'll pull a cat out of a tree and people go, they're doing it again. All right. So what's that name? The world. Watch the world burn as the world burns.
As the World Burns, which I'm sure is
As the world turns.
As the World Turns, the soap
Yeah,
opera.
I love the titles. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what time is
Probably
that
could
air? Does
mean
that air
also
at 9 or 8 or
That's
what's
gonna be
going
at
on?
9
Oh.
That's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern.
So Brian, so that's at 9. So immediately following that at 10, what do we have?
We have the final episode of season 2, Against Time. Ben finds himself behind the wheel of a speeding stock car in 1976, but a terrifying threat from the future could sabotage the leap. Racing against the clock, Ben, Addison, and the team must risk everything to complete the mission and save Quantum Leap itself.
Ben is still out there, and I am not going to leave him behind. It's time to go home, Ben-son.
Quantum Leap, next Tuesday on NBC and Peacock.
Wow,
This
okay.
sounds exciting.
We haven't seen Stock Car Racer before, I don't think. And he didn't do
No.
anything. Yeah.
Only in Timeless, I think. Not in Quantum Leap. In Team
Okay,
Quantum Leap,
yeah.
yes. In Quantum Leap, no.
Wish Quantum Leap.
I'm interested. I'm interested in this because my father, Albert Louis Burge, he was big into race cars his whole life, and he loved stock car racing. 2 of his sons became very well known in the area, stock car drivers, and they had teams and cars and won championships and very very famous car driving guys.
Car traffic count.
You can tell them in the sport.
I like
right?
this in case you just needed the visual
in case
aid.
you didn't know what I was talking about. but like I was as a kid, I was brought to every stock car race, and I could sleep with the million decibel cars racing by me the whole time. But so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see what that's like. And what's this threat from the future? I'm going to say Leaper X, maybe.
Well, does it just mean the project time, or does it mean like from the future? So it's vague on that because they're in 1976, and then it says from the future. So I'm wondering if something to do with the leap is being affected by the project, whatever's going on there. Is it
That's
Gideon?
a good point.
Something like that.
In theory, just the project getting shut down is a threat from the future.
That's true.
That's a good point, Brian.
So in this episode, they probably have to resolve the Hannah-Ben relationship, right?
I'm sure they would, because this has got to be. We can't go on living forever. Hannah's aging as we go, and 74 is 4 years after we saw her last, and then 76 if she appears in that one. And who knows? They could leap again in the last one, just like they did in last season. They leaped, a couple of times.
And
so we could see.
When
that.
did we first see Hannah? What year?
What was it? 50 something? I can look it up.
We're talking 25 years later, and she is aging well, I have to say.
Oh yeah, 1949. We saw her the first time in Closure Encounters.
She doesn't look a day older. She really doesn't. Whatever she's doing, I want some of that. So I'm really excited about these final two episodes. I wish they weren't coming so quickly, but I'm so excited. So we don't even know here whether we're going to get the episodes ahead of time at all, because they're so pressed for time. Because even this episode that we got from for our media screener, it was still a rough version. It wasn't the full version. Because they're really racing the clock. So, and 2 episodes airing in one night, man, I don't know. There might be some palm trees on the racetrack, but that's okay. But so we don't know if we're going to do a supersized after show for 2 episodes, or we're going to do 2 after shows, or how the podcast is going to work. We're playing it all by ear. We don't even have guest star lists. We're assuming it's just the main characters, except for, the individual leaping people, but we're just going to do the best we can. And the good part about that is we don't have any new episodes for a while after that, because we don't even know if we're getting a season 3. We're hoping we're getting a season 3. Send hockey pucks to NBC. But the stuff will come out. We just got to edit it all. Luckily, John is joining our editing team. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
So I think, do we have any last or thoughts or notes we took down, or thoughts we had in our head that we hadn't talked about yet for this? Not final thoughts, but just clean up.
I'm glad that they didn't that Tom is being mature about all this. Like it would standard TV show would have him be spiteful or at least snippy, and he's like, well, it sucks. But
I think maybe he was trying to make sure that Addison's the one who's fired, so she ends up away from the project, and that kind of backfired.
You think so?
Yeah.
You still think Tom's a bad guy? I think Tom's a great guy. I think he's a good guy. I don't think there's another shoe
I think
to drop.
there's more to him than he's letting on.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm buying good Tom all the way. I think he's been through loss before when he lost his wife. I think he's mature. I think he's rational. I think he's kind. I think he sees the love between Ben and Addison. And I think he knows when he's beat. And I think he knows that it wasn't as much up to Addison as it was what it was. So he was more accepting it and being graceful and bowing out gracefully when they broke up, and not fighting for her, but just being an adult about it. So I just really respected the Tom character for that. I really did.
Same.
I hope that's what it is. Yeah. I hope that's really what it is.
It'd be nice, but I don't see it.
It gave me member berries for some of my past relationships that ended on a good note like that. That final little touch or caress when you're saying goodbye, and the next time you see this person, you're not going to be able to touch them like that again. and same the other way around. So it was very touching. I think it was well done by everyone. That was probably my favorite part of the whole episode, because I didn't like the Addison and Tom relationship, but I loved what they did at the end with it. So job well done. I think it's time to go to final thoughts and ratings for this episode. The Outsider, Roberto, Volume 2, V2, Version 2. Let's see. I'm gonna go from most negative to most positive. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Hayden first. Hayden, final thoughts and your rating out of 5 for The Outsider.
Well, I think as a standalone episode, it's fine, but as part of the Quantum Leap universe, it's not good to see a reskin of a previous episode. So I did like a good chunk of it, though. I'm going to give it, what would be a good... I'm going to give it 3 middle fingers by Ian to Tom and everyone out of 5.
All right. Thank you. Brian, final thoughts and final rating out of 5 for The Outsider.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, even though it was kind of a rehash of Roberto. I still liked it. I thought the actors were great. You know, I was surprised that the brother didn't die. That was a surprise. You know, and I like the project stuff for the most part. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 herba crop barrels, and you know, because I herba care.
Damn it, Brian. Okay. John Irons, final thoughts and rating out of 5 for The Outsider.
You are very good at your job, because I also liked it, and apparently I liked it a little bit more than Brian did, because again, I don't have the I've seen it all before. I didn't have the Roberto, the shadow of Roberto looming in the background. The Roberto trauma. No, I really enjoyed it. I will give it 4.5 charged camera batteries out of 5.
Nice. I'll take it. Okay. I really love this episode. One, because it felt like a classic episode of Quantum Leap. I think that has a lot to do with Deborah being at the helm as the director of the episode. So I think it has that original series feel to it, which I really felt and appreciated. I liked the simple story. It reminded me, like when Scott was talking at his Q&A a little bit about simpler stories versus more complicated stories. I thought it was very fitting that this was a simpler story, and I was able to enjoy it. And just the Addison and Ben interaction for this episode, it brought me right back to the feels that I had when they were learning to shoot together in the Old West. Even though I love Ben and Hannah, I think I like Ben and Addison more. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Hopefully they both end up together, all 3 of them. I don't know. I'm down for that. You know, it's 2026 now. So I'm going to go
all they want.
Exactly. I'm going to go with 6 out of 5. Oh my gourd, that's a large pumpkin. And finally, Plumpkin.
You're crazy.
Oh, I thought you said Blumpkin.
That's a different thing.
Oh, a different thing? Okay, I wasn't sure. So we lost Hayden for a 3rd time.
He just sent a message. Internet's completely dead. Just say that I'm a reskin of Hayden McQueenie as my final word.
So there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. This was the episode where Matt Dale got his dedication. And I know as viewers of this episode, we're not supposed to cry, but as the episode was coming to an end, I started to tear up and I started to cry a little bit. And, part of me thought maybe it's because we're losing Magic, but I knew it wasn't because we're losing Magic. I knew it was because we were going to see that end card, for Matt Dale. And I remember Christmas Day, maybe the day after Christmas. It was a very confusing time. I reached out to every producer that I had a connection with, and I asked them if that was something that was possible. And they were all thinking the same thing at the same time. And they were all agreeable to it and wanted to do it. And some of them went to do it, and they found out other people were already doing it, and the writer's room already had proposed it. So it was like everyone had the same idea at the same time. And then a few days later, when the world found out that we lost Matt, I remember seeing everybody online and in our chat groups and stuff saying, they should dedicate this episode to Matt. I said, they're already on it. They're already doing it. It's going to be okay. And part of me like understood that it was going to happen, but it didn't hit me until I saw it. So
same here. And I really liked the moment of silence because there was no sound over the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was touching. And
I hope they keep it that way for the broadcast too, and they don't play commercials or whatever. I hope they just keep it like it is, silent.
Yeah,
that was very cool.
But it hit me hard after the episode is over, and I just sat there and I cried for a few minutes, and because I think I've been going, trying to avoid not thinking about it. But for me, it seemed like my brain took that opportunity to say, "Hey, this is real. It happened. He's gone. He was important. He was our friend, and everybody loved him." So I'm very grateful to everyone involved at Quantum Leap. So I really should have gave the episode a 10 out of 5 just for that. So maybe I'll change my rating.
That's not too late. Not too late. You still can.
Yeah, I'll give an extra barrel just for that.
All right,
Yeah.
extra barrel.
I'll fully charge that last battery.
All right, and we'll just assume that Hayden's up to 3. All right. For the Quantum Leap podcast. For the Quantum Leap podcast, Quantum Leap Aftershow, I'm Albie.
I'm Brian.
I'm John.
And we'll see you next time. Whew.